Are you ready? Ready to bring a revolution to your relationships? Ready for the experiences on your dating adventure to evolve? Ready for more passion, intimacy, connection, and love in your relationship? Ready to heal past relationship wounds? You're in the right place. I'm Alan, the love engineer, and this is the Relationship Revolutions podcast. In this series, you'll get guidance and tips from me, interviews from other relationship experts, insights from couples who already have a great relationship, and other mind-opening conversations. Oh, we should be recording. So,
Brilliant.
Welcome to the latest episode of I'll put my teeth back in my mouth first,
Okay.
that'll help. Welcome to the latest episode of Relationship Revolutions, where this week I'm joined by Marnie, who is another dating coach, but with a slight difference to me. She focuses on date nights and all sorts of weird and wonderful things. So, Marnie, welcome.
Hi, lovely to see you, Alan.
First two questions, how are you and where are you?
I'm in Finsbury Park, which is North London, and where I am and how I am is, really pretty good.
Excellent.
Yeah, getting over a bit of a cold, but we're doing all right.
So, when I speak to other coaches and things like that on this podcast, one question always intrigues me is, how did you get into it? Because I don't recall the careers office having dating coach or love engineer or anything like that as a possible option.
Absolutely not. In fact, when I went to my session with my careers advisor, I had three things that I was told I could do. I could either work in a shop, or I could work in an office, or there was always the option of the local, not far from me, was the Dagenham plant. And so I could work but couldn't actually work on the cars, but you could work in the upholstery department. So that was what I was aspiring to when I was but things worked out slightly differently for me, let me say.
A very different career path you're on. So how did you come into this world?
It was via lots of ways. So my background for the last 10 years, I've been a performer and creating work and making performances. So that's my background. That's what I did my MA in performance. And it kind of married with my previous life, which was running businesses and in the support world, and I worked for investment banks and etc. So I had this organization part of my life and this creative part of my life, and they've kind of come together in this beautiful realm of love, which is what I'm really interested in. And it's been a perfect joining of the two worlds together, and I'm really excited to be here.
Interesting. So what was the motivation behind the actual dating side of things?
It was really sparked by a conversation with a friend of mine. I was doing some virtual assistant work. I'd been general manager of a theatre company for the previous 4 or 5 years, and producing, directing, etc. But I really wanted to come away from that world because things are tough. Things are tough in the world of arts, as I'm sure you know. The funding is really difficult, and I was like, I need to come away from there and just pivot myself in another direction. So I was putting the feelers out for what I could do, and was in kind of in the VA world, but it wasn't sparking joy. It wasn't giving me life. And a friend of mine said, I don't need anyone to help run my business, but you could really plan some date nights for me and my partner, because we never get round to doing it. And it's like all the bells started going off in my head, and I was like, this is fantastic. This brings together all of my things. And that's how it kind of started out, as the idea that I would plan a date night. But it's kind of evolved very quickly into something else, which is me being an advocate for couples in long-term relationships, purposefully and intentionally spending time together that is away from the home if they possibly can, but certainly doesn't have any other family or friends there, and really focusing on the core relationship. And that's really what's giving me life. And I'm really excited to be in this space.
Interesting. So I'm guessing you have a lot of date nights for yourself.
Yeah, my husband and I, we love going out on date nights, and we're big culture vultures, really. We met in the world of theatre. He used to run theatre space, so we're both from the same world, and we love going out to the theatre. We love doing cultural things. We love doing unusual cultural things, and he's now a tour guide, so we're often going off and doing exciting things. For example, just yesterday we climbed the Elizabeth Tower and saw the clock workings inside Big Ben, which is something that's a really rare thing to get to do. So I love anything like that, anything that's cultural and gives you something else to think about that isn't just, oh, I'm going to go to the pub and I'm going to have a in the local trattoria, which we do every week. So it's different things. We love finding new things to do. So it's perfect for he and I to go out and do things together.
Yeah, so at the start of this year, one of my coaches challenged me to go live every week or put out a video with date night ideas.
Okay.
And so, okay, how am I going to do this? How do I come up with all these different date nights for each week? It's like, okay, and then you sort of think about it a bit deeper and say, well, some people have got a budget and some people haven't. So I did, I ended up doing it for a few weeks and it just got so monotonous for me. And trying to come up with all these different ideas, but some of the time I'd put things into AI saying, give me date night ideas, some for with a budget and some for without a budget. And you so many people, when you talk about date night, automatically think of just going out for dinner or just going to the theatre or the movies or something like that. And it came up with things like, well, if you've got a budget, then why not hire a helicopter and go out for a scenic flight or go for a walk in the park, and all sorts of different ideas. So how do you come up with your ideas for dating?
Well, what I tend to do is work with clients, and we'll have a Zoom together where I will kind of help them to reconnect with how they felt firstly when they first got together with their partner. So kind of trying to reconnect those feelings. So we're coming from a place of love and coming from the foundation of your relationship, because that's where you started, and looking for things that both partners want to do that isn't something that they ordinarily do, and just talking and listening to the kind of things that they enjoy. And it doesn't have to be a big budget. So it might be something as simple as going somewhere that you went to when you first started dating. So I had a client this week where they were really struggling because they're on a bit of a budget. So they'd just moved to a new area. They just moved somewhere new. And they'd been out on a day out with their partner and the children. And they both wanted to go and explore the shops or go and have a sit down by the picnic area. But the kids were like having none of it. They had no interest in doing that. And they had a toddler who was screaming. So I said, take some time out, go back to that place where you wanted to go, but the children were screaming, and just have a wander around the shops and spend time together. You can just have a coffee and go and sit by the river or whatever you want to do. It doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't have to be bells and whistles, but it's something different, something that you don't ordinarily do. And that's where the magic happens. That's where the connection comes, when you're doing something that's out of the ordinary. So you don't have to do something that's really expensive, like a helicopter ride would be lovely, or going off for the weekend somewhere would be really nice, but that's not always practical. So finding little things that you can do, or just get on a on a train and go somewhere you've never been before and just have a wander around and see what it's like.
Yeah. Or go on a road trip and sort of toss a coin, say, do we turn left here? Do we turn right here? And just see where you end up.
Or even just go, we're going to go to this bus stop and we're just going to see what bus comes first. And we're just going to see where it takes us. And you never know. You have a little mystery. So something that I have, something that I've recommended to clients in the past who are on a bit of a budget is Chat GPT. We spoke about him before, giving you ideas. Open your Chat GPT, put in, give me 6 places within a 20-minute drive or a 40-minute drive, or however long you've got of, and put in your postcode, that are great for picnics or that are great for people watching, and just see the ideas that come up. They might be somewhere you've never thought of going before. There might be some little village you didn't even know existed. But so if you do want to get ChatGPT to give you a hand, they can help you with the legwork a little bit. But the ideas that they come up with, you can then get to choose.
Yeah, and sometimes it might be, well, I've got no interest in these things, but it's reminded me of something else that I've wanted to do for years and thought I'd never get the chance.
Yeah. Another great one is to recreate a date that you had when you first started dating. So I had a client who's going. I think they're going to go next week. They're going on a steam train because they did that when they first started dating, and she's always wanted to do that again. So they're going to go off and have a day date, which is a great idea, by the way. We always think of date nights as, oh, you've got to have a night out, which can sometimes bring with it lots of difficulties. If you've got children, you need to find childcare. You're always more of a pressure to have good time at night because you're like on a night out. But if you just take some time off during the day, it's a lot less pressured. You just go out and have an adventure in the day, and it bears a lot of fruit, I find.
And what do you think is behind couples that stop dating after they either move in together or get married?
I think it's simply that we get into a routine. We're like, I've done all the hard work, I've wooed you, I liked it, I put a ring on it, and now I'm just going to sit back and just reap all the benefits. But actually, it takes a little bit more work than that. And we get into a routine, and you kind of think, firstly, at the moment, money can be quite tight. But even if you don't have money worries, is finding the time to actually go outside the house. But those are the times when you're going to have a better time because you're outside the house. You don't have all the pressures of your home environment coming to bear. So even if you don't have children, just like you're sitting in the living room where you always sit and you're having the same conversations, it all gets quite habitual. But if you take the time to step outside the house, then different things come up and you start having conversations you wouldn't have had if you were just doing your everyday mundane things of watching whatever iPlayer show is on. Netflix and nap, as I like to say. Get Netflix and chill. It's like I'm watching Netflix, and within 20 minutes your head's bobbing and everybody's asleep. Exactly. But if you're out the house, you're not going to do that, right?
Yeah. Well, it's less likely that said.
Yeah, exactly.
Too many people do fall asleep at the wheel whilst they're driving out and about, but
we're advocating for rest. We're advocating for rest and safe driving.
Absolutely. So, I had a really good question come to me a second ago. What was it?
Okay.
Oh well, perhaps it'll come back in a moment. So
yeah,
there's a lot of short reels and whatever else on social media. Probably more from those the other side of the Atlantic, shall we say, saying that it's 100% the man's responsibility to organise dates and all that kind of thing. Is that something you'd agree with, or?
Well, I think that it's pretty much wishful thinking because in all the dealings I've had with date nights, etc., and all the people I've spoken to, we want the fairy tale. We want the guy to whisk us off our feet and take us somewhere fabulous. But in the main, as it is with most domestic situations, it's the woman who does all of the arranging for the most part. So, for example, if you go on holiday, it's usually the female in the partnership, or definitely the female acting person, because I'm not going to get all, there's not only men and women in a relationship, but there's always one that does all of the arranging and all of the sorting out of everything, whether it's taking the car in for a service or booking a holiday or whatever that is. It falls to one of the partners, and that's usually, in a heterosexual relationship, that's usually the woman, I'm sorry to say, but it is. So it might be that the woman wants the guy to step up and do it, but for the most part, it's the woman who does it, which is annoying, but that's just how it is. In fact, I had a client the other day who said, we were talking about dates, and it's usually her that does the booking, but if her partner comes up with a suggestion that she doesn't really fancy doing, she goes, "Oh no, you should book it," because she knows it's never going to happen. She's like, you book that one and we'll go. And then she knows, I'm never going to have to do that because he ain't never going to do the booking. Anything that's happening, it's likely to be me that does it. But that's the way it is.
Yeah. I think a lot of those couples where shall we say, as you mentioned, the female type of partner is the one that organises things and makes a lot of the decisions. The more male side has met a lot of resistance with some of his suggestions in the past, and they just want to make their partner happy, but they don't know how to do it because they don't always get straight answers.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of the challenges we face in this area come from lack of communication, or lack of clear communication.
Yeah, that is true. Sometimes a woman kind of like just wants him to know what she's thinking, and we can fall into that trap a little bit. I have a really good tip that I share with my clients, and that is start a WhatsApp group. Everybody's always got their phones with them. So you can have, like, you might have seen, have a date night jar. And then every time you get an idea for a date night, you write it down and you pop it in the jar. Well, nobody's ever going to do that, because who can be bothered to find the jar and write it down, and can't find a pen? But you've always got your phone with you. So start a WhatsApp group with you and your partner, just the two of you. And whenever you're scrolling through your phone and you're like, I'd quite like to do that, just take a screenshot of it and then put it in the WhatsApp group. Or if you're wandering around town and you see a poster of something that's coming up locally that you fancy you might like doing, just take a picture of it and pop it in the WhatsApp group. And then it's always there. All of those ideas are there, and the both of you can do it. It's not just one partner or the other partner. And then when you're coming to book a date night, you just scroll through and go, oh yeah, we said we wanted to do that, let's book it. So there's not all this pressure, or you think of something and then your partner's like, I told you 6 months ago that I wanted to see this. And you're like, you mentioned it in conversation, but there were 16,000 other things going through my head at the same time, and I didn't pick up on that moment. So it's kind of a fail safe. And then whoever's turn it is, because I'm a great advocate for taking turns in booking. I'll do it 1 month, you do it another month. And then you've always got loads of ideas for what you can do, because it's there on your phone.
Speaking of which, I'm off to Mallorca on next weekend.
Very nice, lovely.
Yes.
Are you going to get to have a date night with your partner while you're there?
Well, we'll have it's 4 days of date night effectively, because
Lovely.
we're not taking the kids.
That sounds perfect. Oh, that sounds perfect. Excellent, excellent.
So, yes, that was one of my organisations. So hopefully
Oh,
it'll
there
go
you
down
go.
well.
Yeah, I mean, it is often, if there's something big, like a big romantic gesture or holidays or something like that, the guy does get involved in doing it. That's been my experience anyway. So, but yeah, often it falls to the woman. And even when you're booking things on holiday, it's generally, now this is a sweeping generalization, and obviously there's going to be people that it doesn't apply to, but one of the jobs that I did when I was performing and in between my performance, when you've got a little bit of downtime, otherwise known as resting or whatever you're doing, I was a tour guide as well. And 90% of the time, when you see a client list of all the people that are coming on your tour, the name of the person who booked it 90% of the time was a woman, except when I did a tour which was Churchill and World War II. That's when you'd look at the booking list and it would be the guy who had booked that one. And I used to find that that used to absolutely make me laugh, because when it's something like, oh, war and Churchill, yeah, we got to do that when we're in London. We've got to go to the Churchill war rooms. But, afternoon tea and the changing of the guard, it's usually the woman who's done it.
I can't imagine why that would be.
No.
There's nothing more exciting than going to a flower festival or having an afternoon tea.
Absolutely. Afternoon teas are the best. Come on, who doesn't like a scone?
Yes.
And a glass of Prosecco.
Oh, I'm not a fan of that stuff personally, but I don't mind the odd scone. Or
There you
scone,
go. There
depending
you
on
go.
where in the country you are,
Let's
I
not get
suppose.
into that argument. Not getting into that argument.
Just try and keep everyone on board.
I'm not getting into that, Alan. No. There are places I'll go. No, that's not an argument I'm prepared to go to.
Yeah, just don't go to Bath or Bath either.
Oh no, yeah, that just depends on where you're born, so that's fine.
Yes, and we all speak English, don't we?
To us, yeah.
Even the Americans, even though words mean very different things over there.
And let's not get into that conversation
And the
either,
Aussies.
because exactly. Oh no, don't. Yeah, Aussies are a whole different ball game. Yeah,
Yes.
but we all speak the language of love, Alan. That's the language we all speak, which is what's important, right? Because that's what we focus on, is our core relationships, and they're the ones that are important. And we get to focus on them by having date nights, whereas it kind of gets a little bit down the pecking order of things to do, date nights, because when you started going out with your partner and you met each other, you started dating, you fell in love, and then you built this amazing life together. All of the things like the house, and if you've got children, then the family and everything, the growing careers, it all came from this core relationship that you started. And then after some time, that core relationship gets subsumed by all of the life stuff, and you can forget, take that for granted. And I'm an advocate for spending a bit of time doing that, because there is data that suggests that couples that regularly spend time together, focusing on their relationship, so spend purposefully having a date night or a day date that doesn't have other members of their family, are 14% less likely to be thinking of divorce in the future. I mean, that's a massive statistic. And 83% of couples in a long-term relationship are that have a date night once a month are very happy. So, in the research said they were very happy in their relationship, which I think is amazing. It just shows you the benefit compared to those that don't have regular date nights. But you don't need to do it every week. It just needs to be once a month, at least once a month. And I know that that's difficult for a lot of people who are really busy, particularly people who are having busy lives, who are running a business. Perhaps they really struggle to find the time, but it really does bear fruit, and it really does show up in all other places of your life. Because if you're happy in your relationship, then your children will be happy, you'll be happy in your work, everything. When you go to bed next to someone and there's a little bit of tension, you're not going to have as good a night's sleep as if everything's clear and you're having a lovely time and you can't wait to cuddle that person at night. It makes everything else go so much better. So I'm a big advocate for once a month having a date night.
Once a month at the absolute minimum.
Yeah. I mean, from a research perspective, from the the boffins and the experts, once a month is is all that you need. Obviously, more than that would be lovely, but at least once a month, and that's regular. So something that I always recommend is, rather than put a date night in the diary every month, is if you stick a day, you find a day and then you stick to it. For example, we have a date night on the third Thursday of the month, and then that's in the diary, and it's kind of sacred, it's ring fenced, so you don't put anything else in. And then it's like, oh, it's the third Thursday of the month coming around, what we're going to do. And then it's a regular thing. And if it's regular and something like that's like a specific day of the month, then you're more likely to do it. And then you can start planning ahead, because you're like, that's coming up, and you can have a look around to see what's happening on the third Thursday of the month, if that's what you decide.
Do you think it's important that when couples are out on their date or date night, whether it's day or night, that phones are switched off?
Yeah, I don't know about switched off, because that can cause its own anxiety, particularly if you do have children.
Yeah.
Then you're going to be stressing about, oh, they need to be able to get in touch with me. But definitely having your phones off the table if you're having dinner, or putting your phones in your back pocket when you're not. It's that constantly looking at them that's the problem, and taking yourself out of that moment, which is obviously what a lot of my clients find frustrating. It's like, I just wanted to put the bloody phone down for 5 minutes and pay attention. It's not necessarily and then the other member of the couple is going, well, I just need to check stuff for work. So if you have that ring fenced, and you not put your phone away entirely, but you say, okay, not have the phone on the table so that it's there to look at. The other thing is that when you have regular date nights and you're checking in constantly with your partner, and you're having regular time where it's habitual that you spend time together outside of work, and the conversation isn't about work or the home, or if you have children, or what you're going to do for your mother-in-law's birthday, or sorting out getting the car in the garage, all of those kind of life admin-y things. When you habitually spend time together doing different things that you don't normally do, or that you don't do all of the time, then it sparks other conversations.
Yeah.
It sparks other ways of being, and it sparks other ways of communicating. And then you have less. Sometimes we pick up our phones when we're a little bit, I don't know what to say, I'm just going to look at my phone, and then that'll take me out of the moment where it gets a bit awkward. Because I know that this is difficult to hear, but sometimes we can feel a little bit disconnected from our partner, and we don't always know what to say. I did have a client the other day who goes, oh, after we've finished having conversations about where we might go on holiday and what's happening with the kids or what's happening with work, we kind of run out of conversation. But when you're out with your friends, you very rarely do run out of conversation, even though you're probably talking about your partner, but that's beside the point. But so, yeah, I have a set of love connection cards, which is something that I can send to any one of your podcast audience who wants them, which is like it's a little app. You don't have to download it, but it's a little web-based app, and it flashes up with things that you can have a chat about. So questions that you might want to ask your partner. So if you do get stuck for conversation, you can spark that up and remind you about. It's designed to kind of remind you about your early dating. So kind of like trigger memories that you're like, oh yeah, remember when we did that and that was fun, or learn something new about your partner, which you maybe didn't even know. Even if you've been together for 50 years, there's always something new to learn. Or also thinking about things for the future, because when we've been together a long time, we kind of take each other for granted, and we might still be thinking of that person as they were when you first started dating with them or when you first got married. But I know I'm not the same person I was when I was 18, and I'm sure you're not as well. And
Not.
you know, I don't have the same glasses. I don't wear the same clothes. I'm not interested in the same things. But we don't always take our loved one with us on that journey. So checking in with each other all the time is another way so that when we do get to that moment in our life where we're suddenly going, oh, it's coming up to the time where it's just me and my partner in the house. We might be spending quite a lot of time together soon, and I'm not really sure what that's going to look like, and I'm not really sure how that's going to be. Having regular date nights means that you're always going to be on the same journey or know where your partner is, because it happens quite a lot. There's a lot of divorce that happens when that kind of like empty nester time, or the time when you're starting to wind down, that you think, oh, I'm not sure if I want to spend all of the time with this partner. And actually, if you just had conversations, you just checked in with each other and you just took each other along on the journey, then that wouldn't happen, because you still know each other.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a lot of divorces that could be saved if you just had regular date nights.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's a couple of things that come up for me for that. One is having your own hobbies and interests outside of work and outside of that relationship. Because what I see a lot of times is after a couple separate, the guy goes back to playing the sport he used to play, going out with the guys and doing all these other things. And all of a sudden she becomes more attracted to him. It's like, what is going on here? It's because you get so busy and entrenched in that, not just the 9 to 5, but the family stuff. And it's just rinse and repeat. And a lot of the things you did on your own, you sort of push to the side because you've got to look after kids and all these other things. And you almost forget who you are.
And that's really important to bring that along as well. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. But the other thing to say is that a lot of people are sitting there going, oh, I'm really fed up. I don't get to do what I want to do. All I want, look, I'm going to sack off this relationship. It's not working for me. And I'm going to go and I'm going to find someone else out there who's going to listen to me, who's going to this, that, and the other. And as our single friends will attest, get out on the dating scene and you go, oh my God, these people are crazy. These people are crazy. And then after some time, when the person who you started dating, you get 4 dates in and you start to think, oh, this is all right. This person's lovely. I'm glad I split up with that other one. And then once they start not acting on their best behavior and they click back into what they are really like, you start to go, oh no, actually. And then pretty soon you're looking at the partner that you sacked off going, oh, yeah, maybe the grass isn't always greener. Yeah, maybe it's not so easy.
Yeah, I think it's the 80-20 rule. We're always looking for that 100% of our ideal partner. We're with somebody that ticks 80% of the boxes, but that 20% is still attractive and very alluring, and you might happen to come across somebody who is that 20%, and that's cool. So you sort of push that one to the side and go on to this 20%, and then after a day, a week, a month, a couple of years, who knows, you find out that 20% is all they've got.
Yeah. You were better off with the 80% with the original one. Yeah, I mean, it's really true. It's really true. I mean, I met my husband late in life. I didn't get married until I was 50. Had a very complicated, I'm going to go into that. So I know what it's like to be single and to be trying to find someone who ticks all of your boxes.
Yeah.
And it's not easy and actually I think that in the modern dating world, it's even harder to find the right person, because you seem to be bombarded with so many different ways to meet someone that is not organic and not natural. It's not like how you don't just bump into them, especially like a lot of people living on an online world. It's more difficult to stumble across people.
Yes.
So
it's a bit like a kid in a sweetie shop, isn't it? Right, just
you keep swiping,
you can have one sweet.
You think, yeah, you keep swiping because you think the one behind's going to be better, but actually, no. And, I sometimes think life was less complicated when you just married the person that, somebody in the village thought was a good match for you. Like,
Yeah.
I used to say, I don't understand why someone that you meet drunk at 3 o'clock in a nightclub is going to be a perfect partner for you. But someone that your Auntie Gillian says, oh, I know my friend's got a lovely young boy. And you're like, oh no, you couldn't possibly find me an ideal partner. Like, yeah, the
Yes.
old ways are sometimes the
Yeah.
good ways.
Yeah, because that's the way it used to be. Whether I don't know, few relationships like that on Bridgerton and some of the other recent TV series, and you think,
Yeah.
well, hang on a minute. There's no swiping. There's no this. There's no that. And
No,
some of them work, some of them don't. But I think that's just part of
absolutely.
life.
But then some of them work and some of them don't in modern relationships,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In fact, probably the divorce rate is higher because it's easier to get divorced now. So there is that. But yeah. And there's so many distractions around now for us that it's easy to look around and go, oh, over there might be better because it's always in your face and you've always got opportunities. But I think that the statistic was something like 70% of people in the 80s and 90s and probably the early noughties as well met people from work, and that's
Yeah.
how they got together. And I think it's more difficult now if you're working from home to have a moment with someone that you might meet around the corner from the coffee shop, or how we used to meet, which is in the smoking room back in the day.
Yeah. And these days with the discrimination laws and things like that, where if a guy just happens to glance at a woman the wrong way, it's sexual discrimination and all these other things. So the guys ain't approaching women at work. Even
Yeah, I
if they
think
meet
there
a
is
work
more. Yeah,
colleague outside of work, they're not going to do it because that can be taken it into work. It's certainly a lot more complicated these days, I think.
yeah, it is, and I'm totally here for. I'd rather the law. I think I'd rather it was that way, and less women felt intimidated or obliged to go out with someone, than now when it's the other way, and it's like it's difficult to approach someone. You can always engage a third party, and if you're really interested in someone and you want to approach them and find out if they're interested, there are ways of doing that without appearing like, there's always ways to do that. So I'm glad that women don't feel obliged because they feel like it's going to somehow be detrimental to their career if they say no. Those, there are those ways of looking at it as well. But yeah, it's certainly more of a minefield now, the dating world. So
yeah. Plus a lot guys sort of. An interesting one is those dodgy chat up lines that everyone hears when they're drunk. Some of them are effective. Two guys could use the same chat up line with the same girl. One, it's cheesy as hell and uncomfortable, and the other one, it's an absolute turn on. Why? Because she finds the guy attractive.
Exactly, because that's exactly it, right? It's like, it's not the chat up line, it's the fact that you've approached them and said hi. I mean, just approaching someone and going hi and like having a regular conversation is absolutely fine. And then if that person, because it works with guys to women as well, if that person warms to you and continues the conversation, then that that's someone who's interested in you. It might not be interested in you in a romantic sense, but it's, it can take a little bit longer time to find that out, but
Or they're
just
just
having a
being polite.
conversation. Well, it could be that. It could be that, just being polite. But that doesn't, if you're coming across as a nice person and that they don't feel uncomfortable, then that's fine.
Although there's
carry on the conversation.
That old story that women aren't attractive to nice guys. They like the bad boys.
Yeah, it's not true.
My theory is they want the excitement of the bad boy, the respect of the nice guy, but also a guy who can be an old-fashioned gentleman and leader. But which one do they want? All three. in one bloke
Well, I think there
at
can be
different
elements
times.
of that at different times, exactly. And we can all be polite, right? We can all be like the bad person every now and again, when the mood takes you. But there's one thing being slightly risque and taking the lead in the bedroom, and there's another, being coercively controlling. Do you know what I mean? That's outside of that moment. It's
It
just
comes
about
down to
where
consent.
you are. Yeah, absolutely. But it comes down to context as well, right? It's like if you're in that space, if that energy is around, it feels okay to do that. But
Third aisle of the supermarket, not so much.
yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a time and a place. Yeah.
So we've already answered one of the questions I ask most guests that are in a relationship, which is
Oh yeah.
how did you meet your partner? Because so
Ah,
often
okay.
I get asked that question of, well, where do I meet the one? Well, people have met at work, people have met online, people have met through friends, people have bumped into each other at a supermarket. Who knows when and where you're going to meet?
Yeah. So one of my favourite stories is a friend of mine who met their partner because he helped her with some luggage at King's Cross Station. She was getting off of a train and she was struggling with her suitcase. It's very, rom-com, but that's exactly what happened, and I love that. But me and my partner, we got together, as I was saying, like we're both in theatre, but I met him online. So I met him on OkCupid, otherwise known as No Way Stupid. Um, and before then, it had literally been a revolving door of arseholes. I'm sure you've encountered that as before. It's like, oh no, not another one.
Oh yes.
And performing at the time, I was in Panto, and we'd come home for Christmas. We had Christmas break. It was a touring Panto, and we had a Christmas break. And I got back. We'd been chatting online. He said hello. We were chatting, and we were talking while I was away online. And then he said, you probably know. I don't know if you're around, but Christmas Eve I've been given some tickets to go to the theatre. Now, I had been moaning to one of my girlfriends that, these guys, they don't want to do anything. It's just like, oh, let's go for coffee, or, oh, let's, why don't you come round to my place, or, all of those boring things. Let's just meet in the pub. And he said, and he was inviting me to go and do something. So even though it was Christmas Eve, I was like, I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to go because, and I nearly cancelled a few times. I was like, oh, it's too much going on. It's Christmas Eve. There's so much happening. I've just got back from tour. I've got all my wrapping to do. It was a matinee. So I was like, oh, and my friend's like, you've got to go because you've been moaning that nobody ever says you want to do something. And he's saying, go on. He's actually got tickets. So you're going to have to go. I was like, okay. So I'm not going to like him anyway. Blah, blah, blah. You know how you go in your head. Anyway, he looked nicer than he did his picture. And I went, and he played Macbeth. Now, I don't know how well you know Macbeth, but it's not really a Christmas show.
Not really
It's
romantic
not really,
either.
it's not really romantic, and it's not very festive. But it was the young Vic, which is cool and trendy. So I was like, okay, we went, and the end of the performance, Christmas Eve, at the end of the performance, Lady Macbeth comes to the front of the stage, and there was blood all over the stage, and there was one single drop of blood trickling down the front of the stage. It was like this great big vignette at the end, and then the cast are all doing their bows. Lady Macbeth comes to the front of the stage. She takes the hand of the rest of the cast, and they all start singing, "We wish you a Merry Christmas." I don't know if you've ever seen Macbeth, but I don't want Lady Macbeth wishing me a happy anything. That was a bit weird, and we kind of bonded over that because it was so funny and because it was so out of the ordinary, and we laugh and we joke about that even to this day. And now we used to have dates every Christmas Eve to kind of like commemorate the first time that we met in person. But it's usually quite difficult because there's not a lot of shows on Christmas Eve, and there's always so much going on anyway. We usually go out on the 23rd as our annual connection date of the date that we actually met in physical person. So yeah, that was our first moment together. But yeah, we both worked in theatre, and then we did that thing where we ended up like knowing we had loads of mutual friends. It turned out because he worked in theatre and so did I.
I did bonus.
Bonus, yeah, exactly, yeah. We knew a lot of the same people, which made it really nice. So I remember one time when one of our first dates together, and it was a friend of mine's birthday, and we went to this, and you know what it's like when you take your new partner to like a friend's birthday for the first time. It's really difficult you're like, oh, this is going to be awkward, and you've got to leave, you never know how it's going to gel with other people. And I went off to powder my nose, and I was like, I'm just going to go and powder my nose. And I was like, oh, I hope he's going to be all right. And when I came back, I looked at the table. It's like a massive round table, and there were like 15 or 20 people around the table. And he was like chit-chatting away. And I'm like, oh, this bodes well, because obviously, he's quite a outgoing person. But it turned out that the guy that he was speaking to was someone that he worked with at the Rose and did a load of publicity. So he knew him really well, and they were just chatting about work. So
Yeah, it's pretty. When I met my partner, I don't think we had many mutual connections or friends at that time. I think her stepdad knew one of the guys he used to work with, but then I went out with my friend Anthony Asbury to the Holman Academy, one of their dinners, and lo and behold, there was this guy there that grew up in the village that she grew up in, and they went to school together. But I haven't told him that one yet. But
oh wow, that's amazing. Oh, it's really nice when you have kind of connection. It makes you feel like it's not so random.
Yeah, especially when you connect online. It's a weird and wonderful world of online.
Exactly. You never know. Yeah, you never know.
Is it a real
it's
person?
Just completely. Yeah. Well, firstly, there's that. Absolutely. But yeah, it's an interesting way to meet each other.
Yes. Have they lied about the height? Have they lied about the body shape? Have they lied about where they actually live or their relationship status?
They're going to look like their photo. Oh, that's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. But the online dating world is difficult. But yeah, but stick with the partner you've got. That's my advice, and focus on your core relationship and spend time with them, and then you don't have to worry about finding anyone else, because you actually, most people I do find like their partner and love their partner. They just are disconnected from them a little bit, and they don't always know how to talk to each other and how to be with each other again. That is
we're not
how they were when they first. No, not really. I mean, fairy tales finish at the wedding, right?
Yeah, and they all
it's
live
happy ever after. I know. Well, they probably didn't live happily ever after. They probably had quite a few bumps in the road along the way, but that's another reason to check in with each other and spend time together.
I think a lot of people are disconnected from themselves as well.
Actually got a lot to do with it, is that we don't know ourselves, and then we don't know how to be with each other. So it's really important to do that.
Yeah, because if you can't be on your own and you can't find happiness on your own, how on earth do we think we're going to be happy with somebody else?
Exactly. I mean, that is a lot of the problem. And a lot of the time, our partners can help us with that. If we're open and things to do that we enjoy doing together, that brings a lightness, doesn't it? So if you're doing something that you love and you're bringing your partner along and they want to come, and it's really good for our mental health and it's really good for our well-being, and that helps us with self-satisfaction. So that's something that came up in the University of Lincoln did a study of something like 10,000 couples. Like, it was a massive study about date nights and dating, and they found that when you do something that's different, that's not just the ordinary, that's something that you haven't done before, that you are not habitually doing, gives, as well as fostering connection with your partner and strengthening bonds, it gives you personal satisfaction. It helps in your personal development and growth as well. So it has that additional benefit of a date night, is that it helps you in your personal growth, and you can test things out. So doing something new doesn't have to be a massive commitment. I had a client once who said, "Oh, I've been trying to get him to sign up for this pottery course, and it's only down the road. It's just round the corner at our local further education college, and I really want to do pottery. And he said he wants to do it, but he just won't sign up for the course." And I said, "Well, maybe it's just too much of a commitment. Maybe what if he gets there week one and doesn't enjoy it, and then he's signed up for 10 weeks, and then he's held hostage for 10 weeks having to go to this pottery class that he doesn't want to do." I said, "Why don't you find a one-off class to do and do something together and make something together?" There are loads of pottery classes that you can do where you can have like a date doing a pottery thing, and then you'll know afterwards whether you're going to enjoy it and whether you want to book it. So that's another thing that I advocate for, is like little taster things, the things that you think you might want to do or you might want to look at later on.
Yeah.
Glass blowing or wood lathing or something, I don't know. Learning German, might want to do it together. But if you just go for a little taster thing, then you might enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you don't get married on the first date. You go for that one date, few dates at least, to make sure that, are they a nice person? Do I get on with them?
If you
Same
don't
with
have
a
a
new
lot
hobby.
of time, yeah, exactly. If you don't have a lot of time and your Tuesday nights are precious, you don't want to give up 10 Tuesday nights of your life to something that you kind of like half going to enjoy and you might not. So it's a bit of a commitment. So just have a little taster thing. That's another of my top tips. Yeah.
So, Marnie, how can people who are listening to this find you and get in touch with you?
Well, you can absolutely find me, Marnie Nash, on LinkedIn. So the Date Night Designer on LinkedIn. That's a way of getting in touch with me. But I'm also going to give you a link so your audience can sign up to get a copy of my Love Connection deck, which is that little conversation sparks that I talked to you about. And then you'll get onto my mailing list. Excuse me. And the best thing that I can do is my date night design session. So that is a 1 hour one-to-one with me, just me, you and Zoom. Your partner doesn't have to be there. And we will reconnect with how you felt when you first started dating, and we'll find together space in your head, in your heart, and in your diary to consciously, purposefully spend time together and find little ways, little ideas. I'm giving you a flavour of the kind of things that I can suggest to do that you maybe haven't thought about doing before. And I can bring all of my creative energy, my years of like making things happen and facilitating other people to have a good time. I can bring it all together in my signature date night design session. And what I'm going to do is it's £97 for the hour. But what I'm going to do is for the first 3 people that sign up, and if they send me a DM on LinkedIn or Instagram at the Date Night Designer, then I will, and they quote the Love Engineer, then I'm going to give them £20 off. How's about that?
Excellent.
So yeah, there you go. You have a little discount for listening to the podcast today.
So, final question, and everyone gets this. They just don't get primed for it unless they've already been listening to me. So, the question is, as this podcast is called Relationship Revolutions, from your perspective, what is one thing that would bring a revolution to the world of dating and relationships?
I think it's pretty obvious. Having a regular date night with your partner once a month, the third Thursday, the second Tuesday, the last Sunday. It can be a day, it can be an evening, it can be an afternoon, just spending, ring fencing a moment to say, it's you and me, baby, let's go off and do something exciting. That is the revolution of relationships that I'm here for. That's my jam, and that's what I'm here for, to help you do that, and to help couples who don't have the time to do it, or don't have the inspiration to be in my world, and I'll really help you to connect with your love and remember why you fell in love.
Excellent. And on that note, I'd say we're done.
Thank you, Alan. This has been lovely, and I look forward to connecting with all of your audience.
Thank you for listening. And if you haven't already, please leave me a review on your preferred podcast platform. Click the like button and also subscribe so that you get the new episode notifications. I'm curious, what did you take away from this episode? Please share your takeaways with me. Send me an email to relationship-revolutions@theloveengineer.rocks.